Hey guys, welcome to the Curiosity Channel. Lots of people have fingers, and a lot of those people have figured out how useful these fingers are for keeping track of things while you're counting. For instance, how many McDonald's you've passed in the last hour, how many cups of coffee you've had that day, how many Oompa Loompas you could take in open combat. But what happens if you need to go past 10? What if you're counting steps between your house and the post office? In other words, how high can you count on your fingers? Now, I'm sure you're aware of counting on your fingers. It's not revolutionary by any means, but as natural and familiar as finger counting is, not everyone counts on their fingers in the same way. There is the Western method of finger counting, which is coincidentally the most simplistic method, where each finger represents one of the objects to be enumerated. But there are other methods. One example of this is American Sign Language, which uses modified forms of each method of enumerating to continue counting on past 5 and all the way up to 10 on one hand. Now, you can keep going past that to get to higher numbers, but it does start to get a little bit more complicated. We're looking for something that's a little more simplistic and a little bit more intuitive to learn and to read. So, in trying to find a way to communicate and display this information more compactly, we're going to need to look at a little bit of mathematics. Now, so far, we've been making each symbol mean one value and one value alone, but we're already familiar with symbols having more than one meaning in different contexts. This is a 1, right? Well, if I add another numeral next to it, now it becomes a 10. This is known as place value notation, and it allows us to use our 10 numerals we have in different combinations and positions to express an infinite amount of numbers. Place value allows us to compress data into just a handful of symbols. So how do we apply this? Well, if I make my right hand, your left, never mind. If I make this my units hand, and this one keeps track of how many times I've filled my units hand, well, that should give us a little bit more space. So let's try it out. There, that gets us to 30. Not bad. By implementing this idea of place value, we've tripled a normal limit of counting on your fingers. But can we do better? So we've implemented place value notation into our hand counting method, but it's a little bit different from what we're familiar with. In the Western world, we use what's known as base 10. We fill up our first digit until we get to 10 and then roll over into the next slot. What we've been doing with our hands would be called base 5. Once we fill up our 5s, we put it into the next number and we begin counting again. Now, numerical systems are no new grounds for mathematics. Mathematicians have been experimenting with different base systems since the dawn of time, using base 5, base 10, base 12, base 16, and base 2. Base 2 is probably much more familiar to you than all of these other new bases we've talked about because you see it every day. In fact, you're experiencing the results of base 2 right now. A more familiar name for base 2 would be called binary notation. Binary notation is an excellent way of storing data when you have a limited number of digits that you can use to express the idea. It's excellent when you need to compress your data into a series of bits, yes or no, open or closed gates on a circuit, or closed or open fingers. So what if we use each finger to represent a new place as we do binary notation? We start here with 1. So far, so boring, right? But now that our units position is filled up, next time we add a number to get to 2, we need to roll over into the next place. So we're going to use the pointer finger to represent that. Again, not terribly exciting, but now that our units position is open again, I can add in another number just by using the thumb here. This pattern will continue every time I fill up the lower fingers, I fold them all down and extend the next finger to go, and then I just keep going, filling up the fingers that came before. Let's see how this plays out. Finishing out this hand, we find ourselves at 31. Remember back in base 5 where we reached our limit at 30? Well, we've beaten that now and only on one hand. So you might think at this point, nifty. So binary is just twice as effective as base 5 and about 6 times as effective as conventional finger counting. But we're just getting started because now that we've filled this hand, we have a whole nother hand to roll over onto. Now that we've hit 31, 32, 33, 34, So just like in base 10, 100100 isn't equal to 200, but is actually equal to 100,100, having two hands in binary doesn't just double our limit, but increases it by 33 times, for a total of a whopping 1,023 that you can count to on your fingers. That's over 34 times our limit in base 5, and well over 100 times our limit in conventional finger counting. Using this system of finger counting, as long as you keep up with the notation on your fingers, you can always look down and know exactly where you are. No more trying to keep track of how many times you've lapped 10. Now, you could extend this principle a little bit further into ternary notation, or base 3, but to do that, you'd have to find 3 positions for your fingers that are natural enough and distinct enough to tell them apart, and you'd also need the manual dexterity to pull that off. And honestly, doing this binary is hard enough for me. So if you can find a way to do ternary notation on your fingers, or if you can even count all the way through on binary, go ahead and send me a link to the video. Prove it. For now, get out there, keep counting, and stay curious, my friends. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and hit the like button down below. Let me know I'm doing something right. If you'd like to keep up with the latest from the Curiosity channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. That'll keep you notified every time there's an update. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.